Hey there, story lovers. Welcome to Story Driven English, where we turn facts into fun and weave tales that stick with you. Whether you're a long-time fan or just stumbled in probably while avoiding something boring like laundry wear, thrilled to have you aboard. Today, we're diving into an epic adventure, America's economic roller coaster since January 2025. Trillions of dollars, sneaky tariffs, and a whole lot of hustle. It's got all the makings of a blockbuster. So, grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's get this story rolling. The American Economic Adventure, a tale of dollars and dreams since January 2025. Once upon a time, actually, just a couple of months ago in January 2025, the United States welcomed a new administration with all the pomp and circumstance you'd expect from a nation that loves a good inauguration. Balloons, speeches, and probably a few too many hot dogs later, the country settled in to see what this new chapter would bring. Spoiler alert, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but one with some pretty shiny treasures at the top of the loops. The economy, much like a well-behaved houseguest, started off showing signs of steady growth. It wasn't sprinting ahead like an over-caffeinated marathon runner, but it was chugging along nicely. Thank you very much. The labor market, in particular, was playing its part, keeping things balanced with an unemployment rate so low it could have starred in a feel-good movie. Look at me, I'm practically zero, it boasted to anyone who'd listen. But as with any good story, there were whispers of challenges lurking around the corner, mostly in the form of new trade policies and tariffs that seemed to say, hey, let's shake things up a bit, shall we? Now, here's where the plot thickens and the wallets get fatter. Since the new administration took the reins, the U.S. has turned into something of an investment magnet. Picture this. Big-name investors and global heavyweights practically tripping over each other to throw money at the land of the free. We're talking trillions of dollars in commitments, yes, trillions, with a T, pouring into everything, from tech to manufacturing. It's as if someone flipped a switch labeled optimism, and suddenly everyone wanted a piece of the American pie. Apple tossed in a cool $500 billion, promising 20,000 new jobs like it was handing out candy at a parade. Then there's TSMC, the chip-making wizard, pledging $100 billion to build semiconductors stateside, because who doesn't love a good chip, right? SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI teamed up for a $500 billion blockbuster deal, while Saudi Arabia and others added their own hefty sums to the pile. It's like the U.S. economy turned into a giant Kickstarter campaign, and the stretch goals just keep getting unlocked. But let's not get carried away with the confetti just yet. Those shiny new trade policies, particularly the tariffs, have some economists scratching their heads and muttering about a potential GDP slowdown. Growth might take a little nap, they warn, peering over their spreadsheets like concerned parents. The idea is that slapping extra costs on imports could make the economy hiccup, especially if trading partners decide to retaliate with their own "you can't sit with us" tariffs. Still, the investor crowd doesn't seem fazed. They're too busy writing checks and dreaming of the next big thing, maybe a factory that makes self-driving hot dog trucks. Who knows? The real magic, though, is in the sectors lighting up like Christmas trees. Tech's a big winner. Naturally, AI and semiconductors are the cool kids everyone wants to hang out with. Manufacturing's making a comeback too, with companies betting on made in the USA like it's the next fashion trend. And let's not forget the international players. Key trade partners are still in the game, shaping the investment landscape like seasoned chess masters. It's a global party, and the U.S. is the host with the most dollars. That is .so. What's the takeaway from this economic fairy tale? The U.S. is riding a wave of investor enthusiasm that could fund a small or not-so-small country, But it's not all smooth sailing. Those tariffs might just be the grumpy troll under the bridge, threatening to slow things down. Still, for now, the story's looking pretty upbeat, full of big bets, bold moves, and a dash of American optimism. And if the economy does stumble, well, at least it'll have a few $1 trillion to cushion the fall. Stay tuned. Folks, this tale's just getting started. Chapter 1. Macroeconomic Performance Under New Administration as of January 2025. GDP growth. Sue, where were we? Oh yes, the U.S. economy was basking in the glow of trillion-dollar investment promises, strutting its stuff like a peacock at a party. But as any good storyteller knows, the second act is where things get a little tricky and the numbers start doing some fancy footwork. Let's dive into the macroeconomic performance under this shiny new administration, shall we? Spoiler, it's a bit like watching a tightrope walker juggling spreadsheets. Impressive, but you're not quite sure if they'll make it to the other side. First up, GDP growth, the heartbeat of any economy worth its salt. In the first quarter of 2025, the U.S. clocked in at a respectable 2.3% annual real GDP growth, matching the pace of the last quarter of 2024. Not too shabby, right? It was like the economy said, "Hey, I've got some leftover holiday shopping energy, let's restock those shelves." And restock it did, with inventory recovery playing the hero after a consumer spending spree late last year. But here's the twist. The crystal balls of economic forecasters ACA, fancy models with lots of decimal points, predict a slowdown to 1.9% for Q2 and Q3 of 2025. Why, you ask? Well, those new tariffs are like the grumpy neighbor who keeps raising the fence. Prices go up, inflation grumbles, and suddenly everyone's tightening their belts. Still, hope's not lost. By 2026, whispers of tax cuts and lower interest rates promise to nudge growth back up to around 2.2%. It's like the economy's planning a little comeback tour, modest, but with a catchy tune. Zoom out a bit, and the yearly picture looks like this. GDP growth is expected to dip from a sprightly 2.8% in 2024 to 2.3% in 2025, then 2.1% in 2026. Not exactly a sprint, more of a leisurely jog with a few stumbles. Some analysts, like the folks at S&P Global, are even more cautious, pegging quarterly growth at an average of 1.6% for 2025 and a yearly 1.9% for both 2025 and 2026. They're pointing fingers at weaker household and government spending, thanks to the new policies shaking things up. Meanwhile, the optimists at Deloitte are waving a cheerier flag. Their baseline scenario says 2.6% growth for 2025, and in their productivity boom, fantasy complete with unicorns and rainbows, probably it's a zippy 2.9%. Who's right? Well, it's anyone's guess. The economy's like a weather forecast right now, partly sunny with a chance of tariffs. Let's rewind to late 2024 for a second, just to see where this roller coaster started. Q3 of that year was a banger 3.1 annual growth, fueled by consumers splurging like it was Black Friday every day, exports soaring, and businesses pouring cash into tech and infrastructure. It was the economic equivalent of a triple-shot espresso. But by Q4, the buzz wore off, and growth settled at 2.3%. A solid effort, but you could almost hear the economy muttering, "Okay, I need a nap." Fast forward to January 2025, when the new administration took over, and the markets got a case of the jitters. The S&P 500, the trusty barometer of Wall Street's mood, dropped 7.1% since the inauguration. Investors were like, "New boss, new rules, should we panic or just buy more coffee?" So, what's the vibe? The U.S. economy's still got some swagger, but it's walking a tightrope with tariffs on one side and investor optimism on the other. Households might be clutching their wallets a little tighter, and the government's not exactly throwing money around like confetti anymore. Yet, those big investment promises from Part I trillions of dollars, remember, are still in play, keeping the dream alive. It's a balancing act worthy of a circus, complete with a few gasps and maybe a popcorn spill or two. Will the tax cuts and interest rate drops save the day in 2026? Or will the tariffs turn this tale into a cautionary one? Grab a seat. Folks, the next chapter's bound to be a doozy. Chapter 2, Macroeconomic Performance Under New Administration as of January 2025. Unemployment rate will come back to our economic saga, where the U.S. is juggling growth, tariffs, and trillion-dollar dreams like a circus performer with a caffeine addiction. So far, we've seen GDP doing a modest two-step and investors throwing money around like it's confetti at a parade. But what about the folks keeping this show on the road, the workers? Let's zoom in on the labor market, where things are looking sturdy, if not exactly ready to breakdance. Picture this. The labor market kicked off 2025 with a sigh of relief, shaking off the summertime blues of 2024 like a dog after a bath. Back in November 2024, the unemployment rate was loafing around at 4.2%, giving everyone a mild case of the jitters. But by January 2025, just as the new administration was settling into its fancy new chairs, it dipped to a cool 4.0%. Take that, pessimists. The labor market seemed to cheer, flexing its biceps for all to see. December 2024 had already set the stage with a solid 4.1% rate and a whopping 256,000 new non-farm jobs, way more than anyone expected. It was like the economy threw a surprise party, and everyone showed up with a paycheck. Fast forward a bit, and the crystal ball gazers, economists have some predictions. They reckon unemployment might nudge up to 4.1% in Q2 of 2025, just a little hiccup as the new policies, tariffs, shuffle things around. But don't worry, it's not planning to stick around like an unwelcome guest. By the end of 2025, it's expected to settle back at 4.0%, and by the close of 2026, it might even dip to a sprightly 3.9%. That's right, the labor market's aiming to end this tale on a high note, maybe with a victory lap or two. But wait, not everyone's singing the same tune. The folks at S&P Global are playing the cautious card, warning that unemployment could climb to a peak of 4.6% by mid-2026. Hold your horses, they say, pointing to potential roadblocks like slower job growth in the public sector. Apparently, the government might not be in the mood to hire, like it's hosting a jobs fair anytime soon. It's a bit like the labor market's been handed a golden ticket, only to find out the chocolate factory's cutting back on tour guides. Still, for now, things are looking pretty robust to 5600. New jobs don't just grow on trees. So, what's the scoop? The labor market's strutting into 2025 with confidence, shrugging off last year's worries and flashing a grin that says, "I've got this." Sure, those policy changes might throw a few curveballs. Tariffs could make hiring a tad trickier down the road, but for the moment, it's steady as she goes. Workers are clocking in, paychecks are flowing, and the unemployment rate's doing a little happy dance round the 4% mark. Will it keep twirling smoothly, or will it trip over a tariff or two? Stick around, this economic adventure's got more twists than a pretzel factory, and the labor market's right in the middle of the fun. Chapter 3, Macroeconomic Performance Under New Administration as of January 2025. Inflationary we are again. Folks, knee-deep in our economic epic, where the U.S. is juggling growth, jobs, and a trillion-dollar investment party. The labor market's been flexing its muscles, GDP's doing a cautious cha-cha, and now it's time to shine the spotlight on everyone's favorite buzzword, inflation. Buckle up, this part of the story has prices creeping up, like uninvited guests at a barbecue, and the Federal Reserve's watching it all with a furrowed brow. Let's set the scene. In the 12 months ending December 2024, the Consumer Price Index CPI-ACA, the "How much does my grocery bill hurt?" meter rose by a manageable 2.9%. Not too wild, not too tame, just a polite little uptick in prices. Strip out the roller coaster. Rides of food and energy, and core inflation clocked in at 2.5%, steady as a rock. It was like the economy was saying, sure, gas and burgers might bounce around, but I've got the basics under control. Fast forward to January 2025, and inflation's still hanging out at a slightly spicier 3% over the past year. Nothing to panic about yet. Enter the plot twist. Those pesky tariffs we've been hearing about. They're like the new kid in town who keeps turning up the heat. Experts at Deloitte are whispering that these higher tariffs are going to keep inflation simmering longer than a pot of grandma's chili. Worse, they're tying the Federal Reserve's hands. No quick interest rate cuts to cool things down anytime soon. Meanwhile, S&P Global's number crunchers predict the Fed will keep the federal funds rate parked at 4.25-4.50 for most of 2025, staring down inflation like a sheriff in a standoff. Their guess? About half the extra costs from tariffs will get passed straight to consumers. So, that shiny new gadget or imported coffee. Yep, your wallet's going to feel it. And the people? Oh, they're catching on. Back in January 2025, consumers thought inflation over the next year would hit 3 optimistic, almost cozy. By February, that number jumped to 4.3%, the highest since November 2023. It's like they looked at their shopping receipts, saw the tariffs looming, and collectively said, wait, this party's getting expensive. You can almost hear the grumbles at checkout lines across the country. $4 for a loaf of bread? I blame the trade policy. So, what's the Fed to do? Well, it's playing the cautious card. Think of it as the economic equivalent of a parent saying, we'll see when you ask for ice cream. With inflation refusing to chill out, those hoped for rate cuts in 2025 are looking more like a distant mirage. The Fed's got its eyes glued to the tariff effect, knowing that every percentage point of inflation is another reason to keep the money brakes on. It's a delicate dance. Keep prices from spiraling, but don't squash the growth. Party we've been cheering for, where does this leave our tail? The U.S. economy's still strutting its stuff. Jobs are solid. Investments are pouring in, but inflation's sneaking up like a bill you forgot to pay. Tariffs are the wild card, jacking up costs and keeping the Fed on edge. Will prices cool off, or will we all be paying $10 for a coffee by 2026? One thing's for sure, this adventure's got more drama than a reality show, and the next episode's bound to keep us guessing. Stay tuned, our dollar and dreams saga is heating up. Chapter 4, Joint Investment Commitment from January 2025. Welcome back to our ongoing economic odyssey, where the U.S. is juggling growth, jobs, inflation, and now, drumroll, please, a tidal wave of investment cash. We've seen the labor market flex its biceps, inflation sneak up like a price tag ninja, and GDP do a cautious little shimmy. But now, folks, it's time to talk about the real glitz and glamour of this story, the investment commitments pouring in since Donald Trump took the reins on January 20th, 2025. Spoiler alert, It's a lot of zeros. And they're making the economy feel like it just won the lottery. Picture this. Just over 2 months into the new administration, and the U.S. has racked up nearly $3 trillion in investment pledges. That's right, nearly $3 trillion. To be precise, the total announced investments since Trump's inauguration clock in at just over $2.8 trillion. But who's counting when the cash is flowing like a river of gold? It's as if the world's investors looked at the U.S., winked, and said, "You had me at America first, from tech titans to foreign friends. Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, and the band's playing a tune called Make America." Wealthy again. The numbers alone are enough to make your head spin, or at least make you wish you'd paid more attention in math class. We're talking almost $3 trillion in promises to build factories, boost tech, and sprinkle jobs across the country like confetti at a parade. It's a hefty vote of confidence in the U.S. economy under the new administration, and it's got folks buzzing from Wall Street to Main Street. Imagine the scene. CEOs scribbling checks, foreign leaders nodding enthusiastically, and the U.S. economy grinning like it just got a big, shiny promotion. Now, let's add a little color to this pile of cash. Since Trump stepped into the Oval Office, companies like NVIDIA have promised hundreds of billions to supercharge U.S. manufacturing. Think chips, not potato fries. Hyundai's tossing in a cool $21 billion, with a chunk earmarked for a steel plant in Louisiana that's practically shouting, "Made in the USA." And don't forget the United Arab Emirates, who, after a friendly chat with the president, pledged a jaw-dropping $1.4 trillion over the next decade for AI, semiconductors, and energy. It's like the U.S. turned into a giant magnet, and the world's wallets can't resist the pull. But here's the fun part. This isn't just about the money, it's about the vibe. Investors are betting big that the U.S. is the place to be, tariffs and all. Sure, inflation's grumbling and the Fed's playing it cool with interest rates, but that hasn't stopped the cash parade. It's as if the economy's throwing a party, and everyone's armed with a briefcase full of dollars. Will it all pan out? Will those trillions turn into factories, jobs, and maybe a few extra hot dog stands? Time will tell, but for now, the U.S. is soaking up the spotlight and the cash like a champ. So, where's this adventure heading? With nearly $3 trillion already in the bag, or at least on the promise sheet, the U.S. economy's looking like the belle of the ball. Tariffs might be stirring the pot, inflation's keeping things spicy, and the labor market's holding steady, but these investment commitments are the cherry on top. Is it smooth sailing from here, or will a few storm clouds crash the party? Grab your popcorn. Folks, this tale of dollars and dreams is just hitting its stride, and the next chapter's bound to be a blockbuster. Chapter 5, Investment Highlights. By industry, here we are, folks, back in the thick of our economic blockbuster, where the U.S. is juggling jobs, inflation, and a cool $3 trillion in investment promises. So far, we've seen the labor market strut its stuff, inflation play the sneaky villain, and big investors shower the country with cash like it's raining dollar bills. Now, let's zoom in on the real stars of this show. The industry's poised to soak up all that investment love in 2025. Spoiler alert, it's like a buffet of opportunity, and everyone's grabbing a plate. First up, the finance sector, striding into 2025 like it just got a fresh haircut and a power suit. After a 30% leap in 2024, it's ready for another banner year. Word on the street, or at least among the pinstripe crowd, is that the new administration's lighter touch on regulations is giving banks a hall pass to party. More mergers, more acquisitions, and if inflation cools off without dragging the economy into a ditch, Consumers and businesses will be all smiles. Picture this: wallets opening wider, confidence soaring, and Wall Street toasting to a very good year. Cha-ching! Next, the information technology crew, aka the cool kids of the economy, keeps rocking the house. Fueled by AI wizardry, slick enterprise software, and a truckload of investment cash, this sector's not slowing down anytime soon. Companies pushing the AI envelope think chatty bots and self-driving whatevers are the ones to watch, while business tech spending stays strong. It's like every company out there decided, hey, let's sprinkle some AI magic on everything here. Supply chains, even the office coffee machine. Innovation's the name of the game, and IT's playing to win. Then there's communication. Services, riding the wave of online shopping and digital everything. E-commerce is booming, payment processors are buzzing, and wireless providers are keeping us all connected. This sector had a solid 2024, with tech giants raking in ad dollars, like they're collecting Pokemon cards. In 2025, they're set to keep the good times rolling, because who doesn't love a quick Amazon splurge or a snappy Venmo split? It's the digital age, baby, and communication services is holding the megaphone. Don't sleep on utilities either. Yep, the folks keeping the lights on are getting an AI-powered glow-up in 2025. Analysts reckon this sector's a safe bet, even if the economy hits a speed bump. Why? Because AI's gobbling up electricity like a kid with a bag of Halloween candy, driving demand and fingers crossed pushing power prices up. Higher prices, bigger revenues, and suddenly utilities is the quiet kid at the party who turns out to be a secret rock star. Who saw that coming? Materials is another hot ticket, eyeing a 20-plus growth spurt in 2025. Think copper, steel, and all the gritty stuff that keeps the world turning. These stocks are the economy's mood ring. When things are buzzing globally, they shine. Copper's the VIP here, thanks to its starring role in electric vehicles and green energy. Investors are practically drooling over producers, muttering, EVs and wind turbines? Yes, please. It's cyclical, it's shiny, and it's ready to roll. But wait, there's more. Healthcare's dusting itself off after a May 2024, ready for a comeback with some pep in its step. Industrials are gearing up for a boost from infrastructure cash and reshoring trends. Think factories popping up like daisies. Energy's riding a global demand wave, shaking off supply woes with a grin. Real estate's got its eyes on data centers, the unsung heroes of the AI boom, because all those cloud servers need a home. And consumer discretionary? It's shrugging off inflation fears with strong spending and e-commerce pizzazz, proving that Americans will keep buying sneakers and gadgets, come hell or high prices.so. What's the big picture? With nearly $3 trillion in the investment pot, 2025 is shaping up as a smorgasbord of opportunity. Finance is flexing, tech's innovating, and even utilities is getting a makeover. Tariffs might be stirring the pot, and inflation's still lurking, but these industries are ready to dance. Will they all hit the jackpot, or will a few stumble over the economic hurdles? One thing's for sure, this adventure's serving up a feast of possibilities, and the U.S. economy's got a fork in hand. Next stop, Profit Town, or at least, that's the plan. Chapter 6, Outstanding Domestic Investors. Welcome back to our economic roller coaster, where the U.S. is juggling jobs, inflation, and a dazzling $3 trillion investment jackpot. We've watched industries strut their stuff, from finance flexing its muscles to utilities sneaking into the spotlight with an AI-powered glow. Now, let's meet the homegrown heroes, the domestic investors, tossing cash into the ring like they're betting big at a Vegas table. Spoiler, these folks aren't messing around, and their wallets are wide open. First up, Apple, the tech titan that basically invented the cool gadget rulebook. Since January 2025, they've pledged a jaw-dropping $500 billion to the U.S. economy. That's $500 billion, folks, enough to buy a small country, or at least a lifetime supply of iPhones for everyone reading this. They're pouring it into manufacturing, innovation, and probably a few shiny new campuses that scream, think different. Next in line is NVIDIA, the chip-making maestro, dropping $100 billion like it's pocket change. They're betting big on keeping America's tech engine humming, because who doesn't want faster GPUs for gaming and world domination? Then there's the Stargate project, a blockbuster collab between SoftBank, OpenAI, and Oracle, also clocking in at $100 billion. It's like the Avengers of investment: AI smarts, software muscle, and a sprinkle of global flair, all teaming up to build something epic stateside. Speaking of global flair, Taiwan Semiconductor TSMC might be an international player, but with hefty U.S. operations, they're chipping in $100 billion too. They're basically saying, we'll make the chips, you eat the chips deal, it's a win-win, and the U.S. is gobbling it up. The big names keep coming. Johnson & Johnson's tossing $55 billion into the mix, probably for bandages, pills, and a few breakthroughs to keep us all healthy. Eli Lilly's got $27 billion on the table, likely dreaming up the next wonder drug. CGM Group, the shipping giant, is sailing in with $20 billion, while Merck and GE Aerospace each add a tidy $1 billion to the pile. Sure, $1 billion might sound like the small fry here, but in this crowd, it's still enough to make a splash. And don't sleep on the startup scene, it's buzzing like a beehive on caffeine. Venture capital's throwing money around like confetti in February 2025. Saronic snagged $600 million, Ninjawo nabbed $500 million, and Lambda's laughing all the way to the bank with $480 million. Then there's Uptronic, $350 million. Together AI $305 million, Harvey $300 million, and a bridge $250 million, all raking in cash faster than you can say. Unicorn, the VIPs funding this frenzy. Heavy hitters like 8VC, Andreessen Horowitz, General Catalyst, Lightspeed, ARC, Google, SoftBank Vision Fund, NVIDIA, and Salesforce Ventures. It's like the who's who of investment decided to throw a startup party, and everyone's invited. What's the vibe? These domestic champs plus a few honorary locals like TSMC are betting big on America's future. From tech giants dreaming of AI empires to startups itching to disrupt, they're pumping cash into innovation, growth, and a little bit of swagger. Inflation might be grumbling, tariffs might be looming, but these investors are unfazed. It's like they've looked at the U.S. economy and said, yep, still the hottest ticket in town. Will all this cash turn into jobs, breakthroughs, and maybe a few extra coffee shops? You bet we're sticking around to find out. This tale of dollars and dreams is hitting all the right notes, and the encore's gonna be wild. Chapter 7. Top foreign investors and partner country share. We are again, folks, riding the wild waves of our economic epic, where the U.S. is juggling jobs, inflation, and a dazzling $3 trillion investment jackpot. We've cheered on domestic champs like Apple and NVIDIA, watched industries strut their stuff, and now it's time to roll out the red carpet for the international VIPs, the foreign investors and top partner nations throwing cash at the U.S. like it's the hottest club in town. Spoiler, the guest list is stacked, and the dollars are flowing like champagne at a gala. Leading the pack is the United Arab Emirates way, swaggering in with a mind-blowing $1.4 trillion commitment since January 2025. That's trillion with a T, enough to make even the flashiest tech billionaire blink twice. Picture this. After a friendly handshake with President Trump, the Wei said, "Go big or go home," and plunked down a fortune for AI, chips, and energy projects. Not to be outdone, Saudi Arabia's right behind them, tossing $600 billion into the pot like it's a casual weekend bet. These Gulf heavyweights are turning the U.S. into their economic playground, and the sandbox is full of gold. Then there's Taiwan Semiconductor TSMC, the chip-making rockstar we've met before. Sure, they're technically foreign, but with major U.S. operations, their $100 billion pledge feels like a hometown hug. They're churning out semiconductors stateside, keeping the tech train rolling. Together, these international bigwigs are painting a picture. The U.S. is the place to be in 2025. Nearly 39% of global fund groups agree, crowning it the top-performing region twice as hot as anywhere else. It's like the U.S. economies. Got a neon sign flashing, "Invest here." Y'all, the IMF's nodding along too, calling the U.S. the world's VIP destination for foreign direct investment, FDI. Flash back to 2022 for a sec. Japan 13.5%, the UK 12.6%, the Netherlands 11.7%, Canada 11.2%, and Germany 8.2% were the usual suspects pouring cash in. They're the old school crew, the reliable friends who always show up. Fast forward to 2024, and the U.S. saw a 93% spike in new greenfield projects. Think shiny new factories hitting $266 billion, thanks to mega semiconductor deals. That momentum's only growing in 2025, with the Wei and Saudi Arabia crashing the party in style. Let's break it down with the VIP list since January. Wei's $1.4 trillion tops the charts. Saudi Arabia's $600 billion follows. And then we've got the domestic stars. We know Apple $500 billion, NVIDIA $100 billion, and the Stargate trio SoftBank, OpenAI, Oracle at $100 billion. TSMC's $100 billion bridges the local foreign gap, while Johnson & Johnson $55 billion, Eli Lilly $27 billion, and CMA-CGM Group $20 billion keep the home team strong. Even the startup scenes get global buzz. Saronic $600 million, Ninjuon $500 million, and Lambda $480 million are just a taste of the venture capital frenzy, with players like Google and SoftBank cheering from the sidelines. What's the takeaway? The U.S. economy is like a magnet, pulling in cash from every corner of the globe. The Wei and Saudi Arabia are splashing billions. Traditional pals like Japan and the UK are still in the game, and the world's betting big on America's groove. Tariffs might be grumbling, inflation's playing coy, but the international crowd's unfazed. They're here for the long haul. Will this global love fest keep the U.S. humming, or will a curveball shake things up? Grab a seat. Folks, this tale of dollars and dreams is a worldwide hit, and the finale's still in the works. Chapter 8. Impact of Trade Policy. Welcome back, folks, to our economic saga where the U.S. is juggling a $3 trillion investment bonanza, flexing industries, and a global fan club of investors. We've cheered the domestic champs, marveled at international heavyweights like the Wei, and now it's time to face the elephant in the room, or rather, the tariff in the trade deal. The new administration's commerce policies are shaking things up, and they're bringing a mix of spice and speed bumps to this wild ride. Buckle up, this chapter's got some twists. Let's start with the headliner, those shiny new tariffs. Higher duties are strutting onto the scene, and they're not here to play nice. Picture them as the grumpy bouncer at the economy's party, keeping inflation high and giving GDP growth a little side eye. Experts at Deloitte are whispering that these tariffs will hit the brakes on trade by late 2025, with the slowdown lingering into 2026, like an uninvited guest who won't leave. Q2 and Q3 of 2025 might feel the pinch most, with growth taking a modest nap, think less of a sprint, and more of a leisurely stroll. S&P Global's got the nitty-gritty. They're betting on a 25% tariff sticking around for steel and aluminum, while cars, pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors imported from Q2 2025 get a 10% hello fee. China's imports? Still wearing the same old tariff jacket, no changes there. But here's a twist. Mexico and Canada might catch a break as the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement USMCA gets a fresh handshake, easing their tariff load over time. All in, the effective tariff rate on U.S. imports is expected to hover above 10%. It's like the country's putting up a VIP entry fee. Sign pay up, or rethink your guest list. Who's feeling the heat? Pinebridge points fingers at Mexico and China as the ones most likely to sweat under these policies. They're the front row targets, while other nations might sneak a win by redirecting trade like kids finding a new route when the main road's blocked. But here's the catch. All this tariff talk's got a fog of uncertainty rolling in. Emerging markets are tapping the brakes on investment decisions, muttering, "Let's see how this plays out." It's like they're waiting for the movie's reviews before buying tickets. So, how does this fit with our $3 trillion party? Those investments, Apple's $500 billion, weighs $1.4 trillion, and the startup cash grab are still the belle of the ball, but tariffs are stirring the punch. Inflation's staying stubborn, which means the Fed's keeping interest rates on a leash, and growth might hiccup. Yet, the industries we've spotlighted, finance, tech, utilities, and more, are still strutting their stuff. AI's driving utilities and real estate, materials is riding the EV wave, and consumer discretionaries shrugging off the tariff grumbles with a shop till you drop vibe. The U.S. is still the hot ticket, 39 of global funds say, so but the trade policy's adding a layer of drama. What's the vibe? The U.S. economy's like a rock star on tour, dazzling crowds with investment cash, but dodging a few tomatoes from the tariff crowd. Will these policies slow the groove, or will the trillions keep the beat pumping? Mexico and China might sulk, others might swoop in, and emerging markets are watching from the wings. One thing's clear, this tale of dollars and dreams is hitting a crescendo, and the trade policy plot twist is keeping us on our toes. Next stop, will the encore be a banger or a bust? Stay tuned. Chapter 9, Conclusion and Outlook. And so, dear readers, we reach the final curtain of our economic epic, a whirlwind tale of dollars, dreams, and a few tariff-sized plot twists. Since January 2025, the U.S. has been strutting its stuff on the global stage, raking in over $2.8 trillion in investment pledges like it's collecting gold stars. From domestic champs like Apple to international rock stars like The Way, the world's investors have been lining up to say, "America, take my money." It's been a wild ride, and as the lights dim, let's take a bow and unpack the finale. The spotlight's been kind. That $2.8 trillion edging close to $3 trillion, if you squint, shows a big, bold vote of confidence in the U.S.'s long game. Industries like finance, IT, communication services, utilities, and materials have been the bells of the ball, twirling with AI breakthroughs, post-election buzz, and infrastructure dreams. The Way's $1.4 trillion and Saudi Arabia's $600 billion have turned heads, while nearly 40% of global funds are cheering USA, USA, louder than anyone else. It's like the U.S. economy's the MVP of 2025, and the trophy's made of cash, but every good story needs a little drama, right? Enter the new administration's trade policies, those tariffs swaggering in. Like a cowboy with a chip on his shoulder. They're keeping inflation awake past its bedtime and might just nudge GDP growth into a lazy snooze in mid-2025. Deloitte's betting on a trade slowdown by year's end, stretching into 2026, while S&P Global's got its eye on steel, cars, and chips feeling the tariff pinch. It's not all gloom. Mexico and Canada might dodge some bullets with the USMCA refresh, but the vibe's clear. These policies are the wild card nobody saw coming. The labor market's holding its own, at least for now, flashing a steady 4% unemployment rate like a proud peacock. Still, whispers of a future wobble, maybe a 4.6% peak by 2026, keep things spicy. Inflation's hanging around at 3% and climbing, giving the Fed a headache and keeping rate cuts on ice. It's a mixed bag, trillions in optimism on one side, tariffs and uncertainty tossing curveballs on the other. The U.S. economy's like a tightrope walker juggling flaming torches. Impressive. But you're holding your breath. So, what's the big finish? This adventure's painted a dazzling, messy masterpiece. Over $2.8 trillion says the U.S. is a land of opportunity. AI's buzzing, factories are sprouting, and investors are all in. But those trade policies? They're the grumpy uncle at the party, threatening to spill the punch. Growth might hiccup, inflation might grumble, yet the spirit's still high. The way, Apple, and a legion of startups are betting big, and the world's watching with popcorn in hand. As the credits roll, the U.S. stands at a crossroads, a treasure chest of potential with a few storm clouds on the horizon. Will the trillions turn into jobs and breakthroughs, or will tariffs trip the tempo? One thing's for sure, this tale's been a roller coaster of hope, hustle, and a dash of chaos. The encore's unwritten, but if 2025 has taught us anything, it's that America's economic story is never dull. Thanks for riding along. Folks, keep your eyes peeled for the sequel. And there you have it, folks, the wild, wonderful tale of America's economic adventure since January 2025. From trillion-dollar dreams to tariff-sized twists, it's been a roller coaster worth the popcorn. Will the U.S. keep dazzling the world, or will those trade policies steal the show? The story's still unfolding, and we're all front row for the next chapter. If you loved this ride as much as we did, smash that like button. It's the easiest way to toss us a high five. Share this with your friends who love a good story. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Will the trillions win, or will tariffs trip things up? And hey, don't forget to hit subscribe to Story Driven English for more tales that mix fun, facts, and a little flair. Ring that bell so you never miss an episode. We've got more adventures coming your way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.